Have you ever felt manipulated by someone who seems outwardly virtuous? Wondered how seemingly good people can cause profound harm? In this video, we're going to dive into M. Scott Peck's groundbreaking work called People of the Lie, and we'll uncover the hidden faces of evil that lurk behind masks of righteousness. Stay tuned. What you discover might just change the way you see the world. Today, we're going to talk about a book that has permanently shifted the way I understand evil. Not the kind of evil with cartoon characters and bad guys lurking in the dark. I'm talking about the kind of evil that walks into church every Sunday, serves on the worship team, volunteers at the food pantry, and then goes home and emotionally annihilates their spouse or child. This book is called People of the Lie by M. Scott Peck. And it's not just going to be another book review. This is me handing you a key, a lens through which you may finally understand what you've been living through for years. Let's get into it. Scott Peck says this: the central defect of evil is not the sin, but the refusal to acknowledge it. So let's just think about that for a minute. Evil doesn't necessarily look like criminal behavior. It often can show up in people who don't raise their voice, who don't hit or throw things. In fact, they're often the ones who pride themselves on their self-control and calm demeanor while you are slowly unraveling inside. Here's what this looks like in real life. A husband who refuses to attend marriage counseling because you're the one who has the problem. He's tried everything and you're just impossible to please. Or what about the church leader who corners you after the service to gently correct your attitude, explaining that your concern about emotional abuse in your marriage is actually bitterness or unforgiveness? Or how about this? A parent insists that they only ever did what was best for you, even as you quietly carried the trauma of years of shame and invalidation. These people might not yell, but they'll twist your words, deny your experience, and watch you melt down while they stand there with a smile. And then they'll say, "You're unstable." Scott Peck spends a good portion of his book explaining how evil people use scapegoating as a way of preserving their image of perfection. Here's a classic example. You confront your husband about something hurtful he said, and he shifts the blame immediately. "Well, I wouldn't have said that or did that if you weren't constantly fill in the blank." Or, "Well, maybe if you didn't push all my buttons, I wouldn't react that way." How do you like my guy imitation? It's not very good. But anyway, suddenly you're the problem again. And over time, you start to believe it because it's exhausting to live with someone who always finds a way to put the blame back on your shoulders. You just want peace. So you carry the blame and the shame. You become the emotional landfill for the entire household. You know, scapegoating in families is generational also. Maybe you were always the difficult one, while your golden child sibling could do no wrong. If you expressed emotion, you were labeled dramatic. If you had any needs that needed to be met, you were called selfish. If you stood up for yourself, you were rebellious. And all the while, your family's dysfunction kept rolling downhill until it landed on you. Peck writes this: evil has to masquerade continually. It has to wear a mask and pose as good. Now, this one hits home for many Christian women because the mask of virtue is often religion itself. This is the emotionally abusive husband who insists that he's the spiritual leader, even as he demeans, isolates, and controls his wife behind closed doors. Or what about the mother who tells you, "Everything I did was out of love," while guilting and gaslighting you into obedience your whole life? Or the church elder who tells a woman she's out of line for filing for divorce, even though her husband has been psychologically tormenting her for years. These people don't need to convince you that they're good. They need to convince everybody else. And once they've secured their image, then you become the threat. You are now the problem. You are now the one who's disrupting all the peace. So also then, when you try to tell your story to these people, you're met with disbelief. or they'll minimize what you say, or offer you spiritual platitudes, or say, well, he seems like such a great guy. Maybe you just need to pray more. Have you considered your own role in this? Oh, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that one. You are now painted as the sinner for refusing to play along with a lie. This is where Peck takes it deeper. He says, evil is in opposition to life. It is that which opposes the life force. So, what does that mean? It means that evil is anti-truth. It chokes life out of your spirit. It makes you doubt what you see, what you feel, what you intrinsically know to be true. It says, well, that never happened when it absolutely did. It says, you're overreacting when you're finally standing up for yourself. It says, you're crazy when you've simply reached your breaking point. I remember once sitting in a counselor's office trying to explain why I felt so broken in my marriage and hearing, well, you made a vow, as if that promise that I thought I was making to a very different person than who I actually ended up with mattered more than me as a human being. That's the kind of falsehood that evil thrives on, when systems and appearances are more sacred and protected than the human soul. Peck also writes, the evil deny the existence of their own sin. Instead of experiencing guilt or shame, they see themselves as completely innocent and are therefore the perpetual victim. Oh my word. This is one of the most maddening dynamics to live with. You're never going to get a real apology. You might get fake apologies, but not real ones. If you do get an apology, it's the kind that leaves you feeling more confused than comforted. Well, I'm sorry that you felt that way. Well, I'm sorry, but I was just trying to help. Well, I guess I can't do anything right. What's the translation? This is still your fault. And the worst part? They genuinely believe that they are the victim. They'll tell people, I've done everything I can. She just isn't happy. They'll cry crocodile tears in front of the pastor while you sit there stunned, trying to wrap your brain around how they have once again managed to come off looking like the humble victim. This is not forgetfulness, you guys. This is not obliviousness. This is evil. It is the refusal to face the truth about oneself, even when confronted with overwhelming evidence. So, what do we do with all this? Peck says, we must make judgments if we are to survive and live well. In other words, it's not only okay to discern evil, it's actually necessary. You don't need to scream from the rooftops or call someone the devil incarnate. You just need to recognize when a person's pattern of behavior is consistently deceptive, blame shifting, and truth twisting. And then you need to act according to that reality. Now, this might mean setting firmer boundaries or refusing to engage in circular conversations or documenting interactions to keep your own sanity intact or walking away when the system won't change. And trust me, the system is not going to change anytime soon. This also means learning how to trust yourself again. You didn't imagine it. You're not crazy. You saw what you saw, you felt what you felt, and you are allowed to protect your peace. Now, this book, People of the Lie, it gives language to the experiences many of us could never quite articulate. It was written a long time ago, but it reads like it was written for women just like you and me today. Women who have spent years trying to be good enough, forgiving enough, holy enough, and we still came up empty. If you're in the thick of it right now, and if you're tangled up in a relationship where nothing makes sense, where truth feels slippery, and your identity feels like it's crumbling, I think this book will help you see. And when you can see clearly, you can begin to reclaim your life. So if this resonates with you, I encourage you to grab a copy of People of the Lie by M. Scott Peck. Keep a highlighter nearby, maybe even a notebook, maybe even a glass of wine. You're going to have moments where you think, oh my word, this is exactly what I've been dealing with. And listen, you don't have to figure this all out by yourself. Go to joinflyingfree.com if you want to connect with an entire community of women who get it, who have walked through these fires, who are walking through these fires, and are coming out stronger and freer. You are not a person of the lie. You are a truth bearer. And you know what the truth does, right? The truth sets us free.